My sister-in-law, Victoria, was dead set on getting a climax injection to rekindle her marriage. I warned her that the sensitive area was rich in blood vessels and nerves. Injections could lead to infection, scarring, nerve damage, and other serious risks. Knowing I worked at a beauty clinic, she was, of course, open to my advice. Yet later, my brother Michael had an affair with a young college student, Chloe. He even blamed Victoria, claiming she'd lost her appeal. But Victoria didn't blame Chloe, nor did she blame Michael. Instead, she blamed me. "It's all your fault for not letting me get the injection. That's why your brother went looking elsewhere." She plunged a needle straight into my major artery, stabbing it dozens of times, brutally ending my life. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the moment Victoria booked her climax injection. This time, I said nothing to stop her. Victoria's voice, brimming with excitement and a touch of boastfulness, echoed in my ears. "Anna, I've booked my climax injection for next week. They say it's incredibly effective, really improves your married life. It'll make your brother fall head over heels for me again." I clenched my fists, my fingernails digging deep into my flesh, a sharp pain coursing through me. But this pain was nothing compared to the agony of my death. When Victoria had plunged that large, sharp syringe into my neck, into my carotid artery. In my past life, on this very day, Victoria had excitedly told me she wanted this so-called climax injection. Knowing I worked at a high-end beauty clinic and was familiar with such things, she specifically came to ask for my opinion. Back then, I desperately tried to dissuade her. "Victoria, these things are just scams designed to prey on the gullible. There's no scientific basis for them. Moreover, the area is full of blood vessels and nerves. A misplaced injection could lead to infection, bleeding, scarring, or even permanent nerve damage. Your relationship with Michael is already good. There's no need to take such a risk." She had listened then, convinced by my professional advice and genuine concern, and had given up the idea. But half a year later, my brother Michael truly cheated. The other woman was a young, vibrant college graduate, Chloe, who constantly called him Opa in a sickeningly sweet voice, utterly captivating him. When Victoria found out, she cried and made a huge scene, even kneeling to beg him. Yet Michael was determined to end things and instead turned the blame back on her. "Look at yourself now, you're fake and ugly, your figure has deteriorated, and you have no femininity left. Being with you is like my left hand touching my right, there's no feeling at all. You won't even let me go out and find a little fun. Victoria, it's because you're no longer attractive that you couldn't hold a man's heart." Those words pierced Victoria's heart like a knife. She dared not hate Michael, the man who provided her with a comfortable life. She also dared not hate the young and beautiful Chloe because she couldn't compare. So, all her resentment and helplessness twisted into a raging fury directed at me. She believed that because I stopped her, she lost her allure, couldn't keep her husband's heart, and thus her marriage ended in tragedy. That reason was utterly ridiculous, yet she believed it wholeheartedly. And then, she used the cruelest method to take my life. She pinned me down, her face contorted with rage, screaming like a demon demanding my life. "It's all your fault, Anna. If you hadn't stopped me from getting that injection, why would your brother despise me? Why would he go find that vixen college girl? If I can't live in peace, neither can you." The cold needle pierced my skin, plunging straight into my bloodstream. Once, twice, dozens of times, hot blood sprayed out, splattering her face. She only laughed more maniacally. In that excruciating pain and ultimate resentment, I stopped breathing. Thinking of this, my chest felt like it would explode with bitter hatred. Why did the filthy mess between you two have to become my burden? Why did your foolishness and weakness have to be paid for with my life? Anna, what are you spacing out about?" Victoria irritably nudged me. "I'm talking to you. What do you think? Getting this injection will definitely surprise your brother. His eyes will light up, full of hope for our future. Just one prick of that needle, and I can keep a man's heart, exchanging it for eternal marriage." So naive it was pathetic, yet so utterly foolish it was infuriating. I slowly raised my head, meeting her expectant gaze. My fingers beside me clenched even tighter, nails digging deeper into my flesh, but on my face I forced a faint, almost dismissive smile. "If you want to go, then go." Victoria froze, clearly not expecting such a reaction from me. In my past life, I had spent half a day explaining the pros and cons to her. "Aren't you working at a beauty clinic? Do you think this is trustworthy? Are there any side effects?" She still had some lingering worry, wanting a professional confirmation or denial from me. I picked up the glass of water in front of me, taking a slow sip. The warm liquid traced its path down my throat, but it couldn't soothe the coldness rising within me. Whether it's trustworthy or not, how would I know? I set the glass down, my gaze drifting away as if it were none of my business. I'm not a doctor, nor am I the one who invented this stuff. Besides, these things depend on each individual's body. Some people might find it effective, others might feel nothing at all. Who can say for sure? I shrugged, my tone light. It's your and Michael's business, so you should make your own decisions, right? After all, it's your life together. My words were meticulously ambiguous, neither supporting nor opposing. They simply tossed the ball back into her court. Victoria frowned, seemingly lost in thought. Perhaps because I, someone in the industry, hadn't explicitly objected, she assumed the risks weren't high. Or perhaps she sensed my cold indifference today, a stark contrast to my usual enthusiasm. But her judgment had already been clouded by advertisements promising to improve marital relations. She had clearly lost all reason. "Oh, right," she mumbled. Her hesitant expression slowly gave way to excitement. "I've seen so many cases, everyone says the effects are obvious. Even famous ladies secretly get these injections. For him, for this family, what's a little risk?" She encouraged herself, growing more fervent with each word, as if she could already see Michael passionately devoted to her once more, truly faithful. I looked at her, a bitter taste in my mouth. In my past life, I had clearly explained all the risks, but she, blinded by desire and anxiety, chose to believe in fanciful advertisements rather than face the truth, entrusting all her marital problems to a tiny needle. How pathetic. "All right, then I really will go," Victoria declared resolutely, her voice filled with a desperate determination. "Once I recover, I guarantee your brother will be astonished." She even winked at me, both mysterious and triumphant. I merely twitched the corner of my lips, saying nothing, but in my heart I thought, fine, go ahead. Experience all those risks yourself: infection, bleeding, scarring, nerve damage. See if that injection can save a marriage teetering on the brink of collapse. See if Michael will truly be faithful until old age because of it. In my previous life, I had pleaded and advised until my last breath, only to meet a tragic end. This life, I would say nothing, do nothing. I would simply stand by and watch you all plunge, step by step, into the abyss. In the following days, Victoria busied herself preparing for the injection. She scoured the internet for information on climax injections. Return to your youthful self, tight as a virgin, making him unable to leave you. These exaggerated advertisements had her convinced. She even got her nails done, bought new seductive clothes, and secretly purchased provocative lingerie to surprise Michael. I watched her busy herself, feeling no ripple of emotion, only a faint amusement. Did she truly believe that a few superficial changes could capture a man's heart? Could they fundamentally resolve the cracks in her marriage? The day of her scheduled injection quickly arrived. That morning, she went all out to beautify herself. She applied heavy makeup, sprayed on strong perfume, and wore a newly bought lace dress that was both revealing and cheap, exuding an air of overly forced and absurd cheapness. "Anna, I'm off." Before leaving, she turned back to wave at me, her face a mix of anticipation and nervousness. "Wait till I get back, I'll show you the results." I sat on the sofa, not bothering to lift my head, merely offering a cold "go." Watching her swaying figure walk away in high heels, only an icy void remained in my heart. I could already foresee her future. A blind, impulsive experiment that would bring not happiness but endless pain, and all of it self-inflicted. Less than a few hours later, Victoria returned. The thick layer of makeup on her face couldn't quite conceal the pallor beneath. Her walk was stiff, no longer the graceful, alluring sway of that morning. The click of her heels on the floor echoed with exhaustion and resignation. Seeing me on the sofa, she tried to force a smile, but it looked strained no matter how I saw it. "Anna, I'm back." Her voice was a little shaky. I merely glanced up, said nothing, and resumed scrolling on my phone. She poured herself some water, her hand trembling, causing it to slosh over the rim. She drank it in a large gulp, as if trying to swallow down the discomfort within her, then quietly sat a few seats away from me on the sofa. The moment her bottom touched the cushion, she let out a faint whimper of pain, her eyebrows furrowing. It seemed the effects had indeed begun, but not the kind she had hoped for. The room fell silent for a few seconds, broken only by her ragged breathing. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, she leaned slightly towards me, her voice lowered with anxiety. "Anna, I feel a bit uncomfortable. Down there, it hurts." She hesitated, her eyes darting away. "And there's a little bleeding. What's going on?" I snickered coldly to myself. Finally, it's starting. And this is just the beginning. I still didn't look up, my fingers scrolling on my phone, my tone as nonchalant as discussing the weather. I don't know. Those 3 dismissive words made her suddenly lift her head, her face filled with shock and disbelief. What did you say? I said, I don't know, I repeated. Only then did I raise my head to glance at her, my eyes devoid of any warmth. Victoria's complexion immediately changed, her pale face now replaced by a flush of anger. She sprang up, but the abrupt movement triggered a wave of pain, contorting her face for a moment, though it didn't stem her fury. What do you mean by that? Her voice suddenly became a piercing, headache-inducing shriek. You say you don't know? I just got back from the injection, my body feels awful, and I'm bleeding. I ask you the reason, and you tell me you don't know? Her chest heaved with anger as she pointed a finger at my face. Where's your concern? Your sister-in-law is like this, and you still say you don't know? Are you hoping something bad happens to me? I trusted you, that's why I asked you. Don't you work at a beauty clinic? She gritted her teeth, overt resentment blazing in her eyes. How can you not know? Even if you don't, you should go ask someone. Looking at her, I only felt amused. In my past life, I had given her my whole heart, only to die a tragic death. In this life, I stood by coldly, and she thought I was deliberately trying to harm her. Did she truly think everyone was as dirty as she was? I put my phone down and looked directly at her, my voice still calm, but each word struck her heart like a hammer. Yes, I work at a beauty clinic, but my clinic doesn't offer climax injections as you describe. This type of procedure belongs to aesthetic medicine, completely different from facials or body massages. I don't understand it at all. I paused, emphasizing each word. Furthermore, injecting asterisk anything into your body always carries risks. I'm not a doctor, nor am I the one who gave you the injection. How could I casually offer advice? What if I gave you the wrong advice and something went wrong? Would you blame it all on me again? My words exploded in her face like a barrage of fireworks. She opened her mouth to retort but didn't know where to begin, a clear look of confusion on her face. In the end, reason defeated her. Thinking it through, she realized it was true. A beauty clinic was different from an aesthetic medicine clinic. I was a skincare specialist. How could I be an expert on injections? The anger on her face gradually dissipated, replaced by hesitation and a sense of grievance, yet she was still unwilling to give up. Do you really not know anything at all? No experience whatsoever? I just looked at her, my eyes cold. I don't know. This time, my voice was utterly resolute. She completely lost all her momentum, like a deflated balloon, and sank back onto the sofa. Her discomfort wouldn't let her rest. She pulled out her phone and began scrolling through the screen irritably. I knew she was planning to ask for advice from her intimate, sisters group, that chat group dedicated to discussing climax injections, full of anxiety, desire, and superficial glamour. Sure enough, she soon posted a question in the group, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Her expressions changed with what appeared on her phone screen, sometimes frowning, sometimes biting her lip. Even without looking at the screen, I could roughly guess the content of the chat. She was undoubtedly asking about her symptoms. Then, a flurry of replies would come in, each person offering a different opinion. Not long after, the gloom on Victoria's face seemed to lighten. She intently watched her phone, her initial worry gradually morphing into focused attention. Then, slowly, her expression became visibly relieved. I felt a flicker of curiosity about what miraculous words could have restored her peace of mind so quickly. A moment later, she put her phone down, exhaling a long sigh of relief, her face displaying the composure of someone who had just escaped a great calamity, even a hint of ill-concealed triumph. She turned her head to look at me, her eyes holding a dismissive, "You don't know, but someone else does," kind of scorn. "Anna, the people in the group told me." Her voice had regained some strength, even carrying an uncontainable excitement. "They said my condition is completely normal. Everyone feels a bit uncomfortable, some pain, even some bleeding right after the injection. It's a sign that the medication is working, that your body is changing." The more she spoke, the more animated she became, as if she had just found solid scientific proof. "There's even a woman in the group, she's had injections at that clinic many times, and the first time she bled too." She paused, lowering her voice as if whispering a huge secret. "She said it's like, your first time, you know, the first time so you bleed. Bleeding is a good sign." At this, her eyes sparkling, her face overflowing with joy. "Tell me, isn't that right?" She looked at me expectantly, seemingly wanting my agreement. I looked at her completely brainwashed face, feeling only sorrow. Bleeding because it's your first time? That's a torn hymen, tissue damage. Your bleeding is due to the injection damaging your body. How can those two things even be compared? She chose to believe in a ludicrous analogy rather than face the warning signals from her own body. How pathetic. I said nothing, simply watched her in silence, my eyes devoid of pity, filled only with coldness. Victoria didn't expect me to say anything pleasant anyway. She was completely engrossed in her grand discovery, utterly convinced by the words in the group chat. She nodded to herself, muttering, right, exactly. Any change is good. Bleeding is a good sign. Her previous anxiety and unease had completely vanished, replaced by absolute relief and dreamy visions of the future. She even began to imagine how Michael would change once she recovered. I looked at the smile on her face, finding it only amusing. Go ahead and smile. Every triumphant moment now is just preparation for future pain. You think bleeding is a good thing? Fine, let's see what good that good thing brings you. She was completely reassured by a few irresponsible remarks in a chat group, by an illogical analogy that dismissed all her doubts. She no longer worried about the discomfort in her body, because to her, it was proof that the drug was working. She even started looking forward to the next surprise. It was truly ironic. Using bodily harm to gain something called a surprise. Using false hope to cover up a decaying marriage. And all I had to do was sit here, quietly watching her, step by step, fall into the pit she had dug for herself, watching her pay a hefty price for her ignorance and ambition. Indeed, the atmosphere in the house did warm up slightly for a while after that. Victoria transformed into a different person, walking with her head held high, radiating newfound confidence. She no longer complained constantly or scowled in front of the mirror. Instead, she cultivated an intentionally seductive allure. Before Michael came home from work, she would change into new lingerie, douse herself in strong perfume, and her voice would become a sweet, coaxing purr. And Michael. Initially, he might have found it a little novel. He came home earlier, occasionally bringing small gifts. Each time she received a gift, Victoria's face lit up as if she'd won a medal, her eyes shining with ill-concealed self-satisfaction as she looked at me, as if to show off. See, men still fall for these tricks. See, I'm still attractive. What would a naive young girl like you know? I simply looked on dispassionately at the fillers that made her face puffy, combined with a few cheap psychological suggestions, allowing her to delude herself into believing she had been reborn. She thought she had returned to her youthful prime, and that a bit of artificial youthfulness was all it would take to keep Michael's heart. How utterly naive and ridiculous. If that's all it took for men, then even a sow could transform into Yang Gaifai. Sure enough, those good days didn't last long, because it was merely a facade maintained by drugs and self-deception, as fragile as a soap bubble. Before long, I noticed Victoria starting to show unusual signs again. She spent more and more time scrutinizing herself in the mirror, her eyebrows furrowing. At first, the effects lasted about half a month, then only a week, and then just a few days before she reverted to her original state. The puffy sensation vanished, and the so-called firmness dissolved like smoke. She returned to her old withered, flabby self. In fact, due to too many repeated injections, she looked even more gaunt than before. How can this be? She muttered to herself in front of the mirror. Why did the effects wear off so quickly? She began calling the place that called itself a clinic repeatedly. Initially, they feigned patience, offering excuses like, everyone's body is different, and absorption rates vary. Later, their tone grew impatient. Madam Victoria, the voice on the other end said lightly, it's like having laser eye surgery for nearsightedness. You get your vision corrected, but if you stay up late staring at your phone, it's normal to become nearsighted again, right? We gave you the injection, there were effects. But your body naturally metabolizes and absorbs the medication over time, so it's only normal for the effects to diminish. Victoria held her phone, stunned. She wanted to refute, but didn't know where to begin. The other side's reasoning sounded plausible, yet deep down, she felt something was wrong. But it wore off too quickly, she mumbled, asking in a low voice. Too quickly. The other person chuckled, a hint of mockery in their tone. You want to be beautiful, but you're afraid of quick results. If you want to maintain it, you have to be consistent. Look at celebrities, don't they all get regular maintenance and invest continuously? After hanging up, Victoria's complexion worsened. She sat on the sofa, her gaze empty. Was consistency just another word for continuing to throw money away? She began to doubt. But that doubt was quickly replaced by a deeper fear. Michael started coming home late again. Some nights he didn't come home at all. Even when he did, he was as cold as before, even more irritable. The elaborate dinners she cooked, he wouldn't even glance at. The new lingerie she wore, he paid no attention to. Her sweet inquiries were met with only a cold grunt. Panic sprouted in Victoria's heart like uncontrollable weeds. She began secretly checking Michael's phone, scrutinizing his spending history, and tracking his car's mileage. A woman's intuition could sometimes be terrifying. That day, Michael said he was busy working late at the office, but Victoria found a movie ticket in his car's glove compartment. It clearly showed the time was that very evening, and the seats were a romantic double for lovers. Her hands trembled as she held the ticket, but she didn't make a scene immediately. Instead, she chose the worst possible path, stalking. The next day, Michael said he had a party. Victoria secretly hailed a taxi and followed his car. She watched his car drive straight to a romantic restaurant near the University District, then saw him get out and confidently walk inside. A young, beautiful girl with plump, collagen-filled skin happily rushed into his arms. In that very moment, Victoria stood across the street, the night wind whipping through her hair, drying the tears before they could even fall. The girl was young, pretty, her hair tied high, wearing a pleated dress, her eyes curving like a crescent moon when she smiled. It was a beauty Victoria had never possessed and would never regain. Michael wrapped his arm around the girl's waist, whispering something into her ear. The smile on his face, that tenderness and doting affection, Victoria had never seen it, never experienced it. It was too dazzling. Her heart felt as if someone was strangling it, a pain so profound she couldn't breathe. She didn't know how she got back home, only that she was completely dazed, as if her soul had left her body. She locked herself in her room, refusing to eat or drink. I knocked on the door, but she didn't answer. Through the door, I heard her muffled, broken sobs. Having cried enough, hated enough, and despaired to the very end, she made another decision. She had to get another injection, reclaim the lost effects, and win Michael back. She contacted the place that called itself a clinic, or rather, that chat group again. She inquired about the price for the next injection. The answer almost made her throw her phone. The price had nearly doubled. Why so expensive? Victoria typed her question into WeChat with trembling fingers. The person who had once been so enthusiastic with her in the group quickly replied. Their profile picture was a heavily edited online persona. Madam Victoria, you don't understand. The other party sent a figure it out yourself sticker. If you can buy love with money, then of course it has to be a little expensive. A casual remark, yet it pierced Victoria's heart like a poisoned blade. Using money to buy love, how bitter, how ironic. Victoria stared at that message, her bloodshot eyes terrifyingly intense. Yes, Michael is also using money to buy the love of that young college student out there, money for handbags, cosmetics, for what he calls love. So what about me? Aren't the sums I'm spending also buying love? Why can he spend money on others, but I can't spend money on myself? A twisted, vengeful thought began to surge in her mind. If I can't keep the man, then I'll just spend money, the more, the better. She gritted her teeth, typing into her phone with hatred. Fine, I'll buy this package. Her hand trembled as she made the transfer, but her eyes were filled with a desperate, wild determination. It was a frenzy born of having no other way out. She placed all her hope, all her resentment and helplessness on each cold needle plunged into her flesh. She believed that if she were only younger and firmer, she would win back the man who had long since strayed. How pathetic. She wasn't buying love. She was using money to console herself, to stage an illusory play. After that, Victoria truly went for injections again. Time and again, like a gambler with bloodshot eyes, she staked all her money and belief on those icy needles. She thought she was investing in love, that this was her last card to save her marriage. How ridiculous. When a man's heart is rotten like decaying wood, watering and fertilizing it daily will only make it rot faster. Not to mention, she was watering it with poison. Initially, there might have been some effect, or at least she thought so. Each time she returned home after an injection, she would stand for a long time in front of the mirror, her face full of illusory satisfaction. Then she would deliberately walk back and forth in front of Michael, wanting his attention. But Michael, he came home less and less. When he did occasionally return, his face was tired and irritable, citing endless reasons like late studies or business trips. Even a fool could see his heart was no longer here. Victoria wasn't a fool, she just refused to admit it. She piled all the blame onto herself. It must be because I'm not beautiful enough, not tight enough. So she injected herself even more, becoming as dependent on the drugs as a moth drawn to a flame. But this time, the effects grew weaker and weaker, and her body visibly began to break down. Her cheeks sank, her eyes were dark and hollow, her skin sallow, utterly devoid of vitality. Sometimes, when I accidentally saw her, it felt like looking at a wilting flower. No amount of lipstick or powder could conceal that decay. Then, the symptoms I had witnessed in my previous life reappeared: abdominal pain, low-grade fever, and unspeakable gynecological problems. She began to use the restroom constantly, her complexion growing worse by the day. At first, she tried to hide it, but eventually she couldn't anymore as the pain exceeded her endurance. And my brother Michael became increasingly irritated. He believed she was faking her illness, deliberately trying to gain sympathy to keep him. "Are you done being annoying?" Always complaining about aches and pains here and there. "Are you finished yet?" I heard him yell, his tone undisguised with disgust. Compared to the withered, panicked wife at home, he, of course, chose the girl outside, always fresh, sweet, obedient, satisfying all his fantasies and need for control. Victoria completely collapsed. She began to argue with Michael day and night. The sound of smashing objects, shouts, and Michael's enraged screams echoed through the house. "Michael, you're not human. Look at what you've become. You crazy woman, whose fault is it that you're like this? If not for you, then who? I think it's just your cheap self-respect." Even arguments have their limits. Victoria, dragging her dilapidated body, went all the way to the place she called a clinic to demand justice. The result: the people were gone, the place was empty. The person who once called her Sister Victoria had blocked her long ago. The chat group had also disbanded as if it had never existed. She went to the police. The police took her statement politely, but after a while they said, "Madam, we've received several similar cases recently. This is a type of aesthetic fraud." The scammers are very sophisticated. The accounts receiving money are overseas or through intermediaries, so the chances of recovering damages are very low. We've opened a case and will try to investigate, but frankly, hope isn't high. Victoria stumbled out of the police station as if the entire sky had fallen on her. Her love couldn't be kept, her money was gone, and she herself was ruined. Her illness grew more severe by the day. When she went to a regular hospital, the doctor looked at her results, his expression extremely grave. "You were too reckless. How could you inject an unknown substance like that into your body? The damage is too severe. You need immediate hospitalization. The costs won't be cheap." Those 4 words, "won't be cheap," were like the final hammer blow, striking at her last fading hope. All of Victoria's foundations had been utterly shattered. Where could she get more money? Her life savings had long been injected into those countless doses. She had no choice but to return to my brother. Although they still lived under the same roof, their relationship was as cold as ice. Victoria cast aside all her self-respect, almost kneeling as she begged Michael. "Michael, save me, I'm very sick. The doctor said it needs a lot of money." She held out the hospital diagnosis. My brother didn't even glance at it, swatting it aside. His face was etched with ultimate contempt and disgust. "Money, money, is that all you know? Where did this illness come from? Don't you know in your heart?" He sneered, his eyes cutting into Victoria like daggers. "You must have gone out and gotten sick, brought back some dirty disease. I must have been blind to marry you." Those words were utterly malicious. Victoria was struck dumb, as if by lightning, her lips trembling, unable to utter a sound. Then my brother swung his arm, pulling out a stack of documents he had already prepared from a drawer. "The divorce papers. Sign them. I don't want to see you for another minute. This house is mine. Get out with nothing." My brother's voice was icy, devoid of any affection. Victoria stared at the paper, then at the heartless man before her, and then burst into laughter, a laugh uglier than any cry. She picked up the pen, her hand trembling uncontrollably, and signed her name. My brother thought he had finally shed a burden and would now be united with his true love, a perfect match. Ha, how naive. Sometimes heaven truly is fair. Not long after, he discovered that the innocent, college student Chloe had changed her WeChat avatar to a young man. Her personal page was filled with photos of designer handbags, tens of millions worth of cosmetics, and pictures with various men, all of whom looked wealthier than him. It was then that he realized he was merely one of countless sponsors, and the cheapest kind at that. More catastrophically, he discovered something wrong with his own body. A doctor's visit led to a diagnosis of a sexually transmitted disease. The doctor asked if he'd engaged in any unsafe sexual behavior recently. My brother's face turned ashen. He remembered that pure girl, remembered how he had grown cold towards and abandoned Victoria for her. Karma struck as swiftly as a tornado. He was sick, Victoria was sick, and ironically, neither had money for treatment. The household funds had been burned by Victoria on her injections, and my brother's money had all been lavished on his student girlfriend. Now, if he wanted to confront Chloe, his calls went unanswered, and he was blocked on WeChat. When he looked for Victoria, she had moved away long ago. He was left alone, a solitary figure adrift in illness, truly experiencing what it meant to despair. And me, I was about to leave this city, transferred to work at the beauty clinic's head office. An opportunity, a chance to completely escape this quagmire. The day I went to complete the paperwork, I passed by the central hospital. Amidst the bustling crowd, I saw a figure both familiar and strange. She was sitting on the steps outside the hospital, her hair disheveled, her face as white as paper. She wore an old, faded shirt, worn thin from too much washing. It was Victoria. She looked up and saw me, her eyes suddenly igniting with a hateful fire, a gaze that wanted to devour me whole. She staggered, trying to stand, but was too weak and immediately fell back down. "You wretched bitch!" Her voice was hoarse with bitter resentment. "You knew all along, didn't you? You knew there was something wrong with that drug, didn't you?" She pointed a trembling finger at me. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you stand there and watch me waste all my money and ruin my body? Why didn't you stop me this time?" Tears streamed down her gaunt cheeks, mingling with dirt, a truly heartbreaking sight. I stood still, neither dodging nor getting angry, only feeling pity. I curled my lips into a slight smile, a smile as nonchalant as the clouds in the sky. "Sister-in-law, why should I have told you?" I slowly walked closer, looking down at her from above. "I did advise you before. I told you that thing wasn't trustworthy. I told you your body was the most important thing, but did you listen?" I shrugged, my voice as calm as if I were talking about someone else. "You didn't listen then, so why should I have said anything more? You clearly knew Michael's heart had changed, yet you still deluded yourself into thinking you could use injections to keep him, use money to buy affection. Who do you think you are?" She was stunned, perhaps not expecting such a reaction from me. She certainly didn't expect that I was no longer the weak person I was in my previous life, no longer one to persuade, endure, or sacrifice for family ties. But this was the real me, a reborn me, no longer an easily bullied shadow, no longer suffering injustice for false affection. She was so furious she couldn't speak, her whole body trembling as she could only point at me and stammer. You're stupid and vicious." I continued, my voice not loud, but each word pierced her heart like a sharp needle. "Stupid, because you believed those scammers, believed their deceptive words, thinking you could use tricks to hold a man. Vicious, because you clearly knew Michael was worthless, yet you still used money and your body to win him over, to cling to a marriage that had long been dead. Finally, because you dared not blame anyone else, you poured all your anger onto me. So the miserable state you're in now is exactly what you deserve." I looked directly at her, my eyes devoid of pity, only a cold, contemptuous gaze. "Someone like you, both foolish and malicious, deserves to experience karma for yourself, just like my brother who also contracted an illness." The moment she heard me mention my brother contracting an illness, her eyes suddenly lit up. It was a twisted, gleeful pleasure. "He got sick, did he? Ha ha ha, good, that's what he gets for abandoning me." A grotesque smile spread across her face. She threw her head back, laughing, tears and snot mixing as they streamed down her face. "And you'll get your comeuppance too. You cruel, cold-blooded bitch, you'll definitely get your karma." She raised a trembling hand, pointing at me, spewing venomous curses. I stopped, turned my head to look at her one last time, and smiled brightly. "Here I am, still standing healthy right in front of you." I pointed to myself, then to her, then towards wherever my brother, the dying man, was struggling in some forgotten corner. "Look at yourself, then look at me. Isn't everything perfectly clear now?" This time, I didn't stop. I turned and walked briskly away from the hospital entrance. Behind me, her sorrowful wails and curses echoed, but I never looked back. The sunlight shone warmly and radiantly upon me. I had never felt such relief. The shadows of the past, those corrupt people and events, could finally be completely shaken off. My new life was about to begin, while they could rot forever in the pit they had dug for themselves. Ah,